in order for the bass and kick to feel well is that the kick would be mono, but he'd widen the bass just a touch to make it sit a little bit better and to make it feel a little bit bigger. So I use that trick all the time, especially in the choruses, just to kind of, it's more felt than heard. Obviously, it's just low end, but yeah, that's definitely.
But that makes a lot of sense. Also, if the only place it's going to be listened to is on Spotify or WAV files or whatever, then why not, right?
Yeah.
And if you want to do a vinyl master, then you'll mono.
That's
out
a whole
the low
separate
end.
mastering service to begin with. So like my point is so if like with your speakers, with your acoustics, I don't care how little you have to spend. The point is like every time you get a new set of speakers, you should intentionally put them in different places of the room, spend hours and hours positioning them and acoustics, tuning them, looking at doing some research. You don't have to be a wizard. You just have to just make it thoughtful. And do it on purpose.
Yeah, trial and error and Room EQ Wizard and go for it.
Absolutely. And Room EQ Wizard is free.
Yeah.
And I'm a big fan of SonarWorks. I thought it was just snake oil, but then I used it and I was like, holy shit, this is amazing.
Really?
Yeah, I really recommend it. Like tune it as much as you can before and then touch it off with a little bit of sound reference. Changed my life.
I use an RME interface, and it has like a EQ. You can add EQs to the outputs or whatever.
Really?
So I kind of set kind of EQ parameters for my headphones. These Sonys are so harsh and annoying, but I was able to kind of figure out a way to make them sound like my speakers. And I kind of I did it with my ear. Just like, okay, I did like a bump around 63 hertz, and I took out like 2.3K and 5K, and now these sound pretty similar to the Focals, and it's like a very broad stroke thing, but I'm able to kind of enjoy listening through my headphones now. And I also have these Sennheiser like 600s. I did a similar thing as well, where it was the opposite. It's like missing that 2.5 harsh frequency, but you bring it up and you get a bit more presence, and
I love that.
Super interesting. And I looked at kind of what the frequency curve was, and I kind of used that as like my first thing. But then I just used my ears. It's like, okay, now this sounds really similar to my speakers, and just with 3 bands, that was it. And I was able to be like, okay, cool, because I have like a 3-year-old. Sometimes I have to work at night, so I gotta use my my cans occasionally. So
absolutely,
here we go.
So for real, and I actually do. First off, like. People ask me, it's like, oh, should I get speakers? I've been working on headphones. First off, I do think, to a certain degree, I think headphones are the future. I think it's kind of inevitable, especially with like Atmos and whatnot. If that gets further, which is debatable in its own sense.
I do want to ask you about that. Yeah.
Yeah, and then so I do think I'm never ever going to disqualify someone as an engineer if they specifically use headphones all the time. Exclusive, that's the word I was looking for. Exclusively use headphones all the time. And I also, like with Sound ID, like I don't like flat speakers. I mean, I spent most of my time listening to ATC 45s. That was when I like really got good with my mixing, my first nice set of speakers. So I add a little bit of low mid bump that the ATCs have in my Strauss. And so I customize as well. Same thing with my headphones. I really recommend that. The point, Gerhard is a mastering engineer out in Canada. He's someone that Jesse recommended to me that Jesse uses as well. He builds speakers. He's like the nerdiest of nerds when it comes to audio and acoustics, and he kind of gave some advice on how to listen to speakers. So I recommend everybody go on a monitor journey, save up a lot of money, buy things, return them, put it out on a loan, return them, and then just like go to other people's studios and just like go on a monitor journey, like make the decision to purchase. Gerhard was telling me, it's like, because my complaint with these speakers is like they don't sound like ATCs. They don't have that frequency. Because with ATCs, they're so easy to EQ. Like they're kind of flat sounding. There's not a lot of dimension to them. They're honestly quite crappy speakers, but they're extremely obvious. Like the amount of frequencies that they push out, like it just feels like it's a very flat canvas, but it's a very large one. So it's really easy to get detailed. So I liked somehow that tonal balance that they naturally had. And that's what I got used to. So with the PMCs, with these, the Strauss, like I add a little bit of low mid bump to kind of get used to it, make it more recognizable, and more importantly, like I spent a lot of time just listening to them again because they are different. So Gerhard told me the secret for listening when choosing monitors is with things like sound reference ID, the output on the RME, various different things. You can actually change tonal of speakers. Like the tonality of speakers you can change. You can add more top end, you can cut the low end, you can add more mid-range, whether it's on the speakers or with software, you can always do that. But the one thing that you can't change is transient response. and
Cool.
and so like and distortion in that sense. And the reason why I went with Strauss, and I'm not one to like pitch a company or the other. I think that this is
Jesse's already pitched them on the air, so
okay, sweet. Yeah,
you'll be in good company.
So me and Jesse own 2 of the 3 pairs of Strauss in LA. Like, so they're really boutique. But I don't think they're going to be for everybody. But the reason why you should be thoughtful is because not for the tonality, but for the transient response and just honestly aesthetics. I do think that they go a lot into it. Like if it's a personal space where not many clients are going to come in, they can be small, 5-inch little woofers. It doesn't matter if that's what you like, whatever. But like if you're running a commercial space, then unfortunately aesthetics has something to do with it. But in general, and also you're looking at these every day. You want to be proud of them, right? And how much you love a company or respect a company and users of a company, I think has a valid reasoning. There's many, many factors. Transient response is big. With these ones specifically, I can hear compression like nothing else. Like I've never been able to hear, like it was easier to EQ on ATCs. It's way easier to compress, saturate, distort, clip on these. There's so little distortion with these speakers that like, it kind of freaks me out sometimes.
Yeah, that's super crazy. I noticed when I upgraded to these, I have Focal shaped twins from, HS80s. I hate to say it, but I was with them for a while, and I could hear distortion in songs on Spotify that I was never able to hear. And you could hear. It's so much easier to hear the difference between MP3 and a wave. You know what I mean? Those little things became like way more obvious, and I'm sure even more so with the Strauss.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sounds awesome.
And so
yeah, it makes a lot of
Lou's
sense.
doing the same. My business partner Lou's doing the same thing right now. He's on a monitor journey. He got the same pair of Strauss. He actually bought Jesse's old pair. And he's doing the 226s from PMC. He tried out a modified pair of NS10s, different amps. I convinced him to go on a monitor journey, and he posted about it yesterday on Instagram actually, and he's been kind of going through the works. I recommend everybody do that if you have the capacity to.
Awesome. Yeah. Definitely do it. I've been down that road. I'll probably be down that road again. If the business goes well one day. Let's wait and see. So tell me a bit about inside the computer. What does it look like for you? Are you templated? What are you doing? What are you listening for? I don't know. Anything else in terms of your mixing approach that I'd love to hear it.
Yeah. So I apologize. You asked this question way earlier about template, and I didn't answer. I went on a tangent. Classic DK. But,
all good, man.
With templates, my template is straight up routing. That's all it is. I have a few empty auxes that are named verb 1, verb 2, delay 1, delay 2, and then I usually add a few more myself. I have a mix bus and a master bus, and they're all empty. And it's literally just routing. I'm not a template dude. I have a lot of people like DM me because of the podcast or various different things. Be like, yo, I had someone and DM me the other day who's like, I've been engineering for 15 years, so quite honestly, a little bit longer than I have. He's like, basically asked me, I've been recording and I've been using this vocal template or this setup for whenever I record. Like, can you look over it and teach me how I can tweak it a little bit better so it'll work better with my sessions? And in my mind, I was like, wait a second, why would you use a template for recording sessions or mixing sessions? Like, that doesn't make sense. Like, even if you record the same artist, every song in the same position in the room, in the same mic, there's still so many variables that can change how you EQ the vocal, even the key of the song to the distance and how loud he's actually doing it to how he's feeling that day, whether he had tea right before or not. Like, there's so many variables that will change the resonant frequencies. And that's the wrong question to ask. You shouldn't tweak a template. You should use your ears. And,
right.
And I'm like, wait, so that's my approach. I don't do templates in a sense, but I do make a lot of plugin presets, like my own custom plugin presets. I rarely ever leave them, but they're more like DK start, DK saturation start, DK this start. And then like, it's more of like a starting place. So it's more of like a time saver than it is like something to try to see if it works.
Yeah, totally. I'm with you on that. I kind of have like mostly routing, and I'll have some plugins like tape emulation or whatever, but like anything could happen. It could all be switched out. Nothing is set in stone, so to speak.
They're habits.
They're like, exactly, they're habits. They're options in case it's going to need that thing. Let me pull that up and then I'll tweak it a little bit, or whatever. How hard am I hitting the the stereo bus compressor or whatever, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I'm trying to be very thoughtful with my mixing in the sense that like I'll get into my habits and like, oh, this compressor, this EQ, but I'm very hyper aware when I put it on, and the intended outcome of what that compressor usually does to the vocal that I like didn't work in this instance. I may not know why, but I'll be aware like, oh, that's not doing what I wanted it to do. I won't dig my heels into it and like commit to it. I'll take it off and try a few things. And there may be a few points while I'm mixing and be like, I don't know what to do. I know what I want out of it. I have a few tools, so I'll like cycle through my tools. I'll bypass, and I'll just make sure that every step of the process is absolutely intentional.
Yeah, I mean, and you kind of talked about that earlier, like in terms of like, you know, being a pro and having the tool set and knowing what you're going to do, and you're doing it, and now you're just pulling up the tools real quick, and you know, in your session with your key commands and all that stuff. And
yeah,
you know,
I may be fast, but it is absolutely 100% intentional.
And in terms of like, you know, what you're sending off. Are you using a mastering engineer? You kind of said mixed mastered in 4 hours. Are you leaving anything for mastering? Do you send out for mastering? Are you doing everything yourself? I know you master also. What is that like? What is that thought process?
I don't think my answer will make a lot of people happy, and I'm self-aware enough to know that it comes from a place of pride. I will hire a mastering. I'm really picky with my mastering engineers. Extremely picky.
You and Jesse Ray Ernster are just like two peas in the pod.
Yeah, partially, and I'm sure that his story would be similar too. It's a sense of pride. I've had way too many mastering engineers that change it too much. And I'm like, yo, no, I left it very mid-range pointy on purpose. I've left the low end kind of too much on purpose. You know, and so I want people that, first off, that I can rely on from a business standpoint, that they can turn things around and they're good at communication. That's a very important baseline. And someone that, if they tweak the sound is so minimally in a way that I don't quite know what they did. Like, I don't want to be able to find out, like, oh, all you did is just did like a high shelf. Again, I'm very well trained with my ears. I've done a lot of ear training. So, like, if I can tell what you're doing, I probably won't like it because I did it on purpose. So, first off, I'm very picky. Second off, this is a story that I found out later and how I got a lot of my mastering gigs. This label hired someone from Sterling Sound, multi-Grammy winning engineer, hired me, hired someone in-house, and then listened to the artist, their own master. And it was a blind shootout with A&R and the artist and a couple other people on the team. And in the blind shootout, every single time on every single song, mine was the winner, which is awesome. And granted, it's so subjective, right?
Do you want a job at Sterling? Because they're hiring.
And actually, yeah, but more like, and his master was probably more technically correct. I don't know what it was, but in this situation, it was better. So I'm also really uncomfortable with the idea of sending to a mastering engineer who has less intentional speakers and less. I don't want to be an elitist in any sense of the word, but like who has less experience than me with lesser speakers. And I'd rather be the person, if they don't have a budget for a budget for someone to be better than me, I want to do it myself. I will tell artists, no, you're not going to send it to that person. I will do it myself if I find out who it is and it's not someone I approve. And I play this and communicate this in a way that's in the best interest of the artist. Because I don't play this in a way of like, I'm prideful. I play this in the way of like, it's sounding so good and you know it. And like, for the sake of this song and for you, like I really like, and sometimes it doesn't work out well. I know I'm very prideful, but I'd rather master it on myself if they don't have the budget. And most of the time I do. I save them money. They're happy with it. And I'm sure that many other people can do it better than me, but it's less of a gamble. It's less risky.
But you do have like I guess a couple mastering engineers that you do work with.
I do.
When budget is appropriate.
Absolutely. And depending on the sound, because each mastering engineer does have a tendency, a habitual sound.
Sure. Right. Habits. We're talking about habits. I'm assuming you've read Atomic Habits.
Absolutely, my guy.
My guy.
On my desk.
I finished it a week ago.
Oh my gosh. That's amazing.
You know, I'm a big reader.
I'm a big reader.
I'm sure you could relate as a dad. It takes me like, I don't know, maybe you're a bigger reader than me. It takes me like months to read at this point.
Oh, do the secret that I've discovered recently, audiobook at 2 times speed while reading at the same time. It like doubled the speed. Like in 20 minutes, I can get through so much more than 20 minutes without the audiobook.
That's brilliant. I got to try that. I'm really good at listening to, podcasts. So maybe audiobooks is just the way to do it for me, honestly. But
yeah, like if I'm just doing audiobooks or podcasts, the retention is a little bit lower. But when I'm reading and doing the audiobook, speed is fast visual. And it's better. But I'm
Yeah,
a
I
big
was
reader.
slow.
I'm a huge fan of reading. I think everybody should be reading